Welcome to the Teacher Fellows podcast. My name is Ryan Rarick. I am an education pathway teacher and instructional coach in Washington County School District. As always, I am joined by my colleague and friend and the 2020 Teacher of the Year, Lauren Merkley. We have two excellent guests joining us today as well, and Lauren is going to introduce them to us.
All right, we have our friends and fellow Teacher Fellows, Emily Wilson and Sean Thorpe. So I'll tell you about Emily first. She earned her bachelor's in theater arts from Utah State, her teaching degree from the University of Washington, and she has a master's in admin from the University of Utah. So she's been a teacher, an instructional coach, and now an assistant principal in Midvale Elementary in the Canyon School District. Joining her is Sean Thorpe, who is now the instructional coach at Redwood Elementary School in Granite. Shout out to Granite. That's where I taught for many years. He's in his third year there as an instructional coach. Before that, taught 4th, 5th, and 1st grade at different times across several schools, also in Canyon School District and at a charter school. He's now a doctoral candidate at the U, studying educational leadership and policy. We're so glad to have them both here. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you. We're super happy to be here.
All right, before we jump into the meat of the podcast, we just will review the format. Our introduction right here will go around 5-ish minutes, and then our guest interviews will be 20 minutes, and then Laura and I will wrap up with our final thoughts at around 10 minutes. Our topic today is going to be focused on how to build successful relationships between administrators and teachers. We have a range of experience where Emily is an assistant principal, Sean is an instructional coach, and both of those roles work together to bridge that relationship between teachers and administrators. That relationship is something that we know can lead to incredibly successful schools. It can also be viewed as somewhat of a roadblock for some teachers if they feel like they don't have a great relationship with their administration. That's going to be our topic today. Without further ado, let's jump into it.
So thank you first, Emily and Sean, so much for being so generous with your time. I know you're both very busy, a very busy time of year. But I thought maybe we could start by thinking about the fact that you were both teachers, and in fact, you were both instructional coaches, are or were. But I'm wondering if when you transition out of the classroom into an admin role, if we're going to include instructional coach in sort of the admin bucket, I wonder if you came into those roles with kind of a guiding philosophy about how you wanted to interact with teachers. Because as Ryan said, often those relationships can be a little bit fraught. At least in my experience, I know it's common for teachers to sort of sit around and be like, if I were the admin, I would do this. It's easy to sort of be a little sometimes critical or maybe have these lofty ideas. I wonder, as you made that transition from teacher in your own classroom into a more school-wide administrative role, if you came with some kind of guiding philosophy or idea about how you wanted to interact with teachers.
Sure. I actually never saw myself in an admin position. I was so happy to be in the classroom. I loved it. And I felt that's where I would be forever. But I had a supervisor her name is Stephanie. She saw in me more than what I saw in myself. She started me small, giving me certain responsibilities, and that grew into an instructional coach. When I was an instructional coach, I found out really quickly that I loved working with adults just as much as I loved working with kids. I thought, this is fantastic. I love working with these teachers. And I think my next big move came when I had the opportunity to step in as an assistant director. I was really hesitant. I really thought about it for a couple of weeks. What finally guided me in it, as you said, is I realized as I was watching my supervisor that she was able to influence more than just a classroom of students, but she was able to influence a whole school. And that's finally what gave me the final push to want to be involved. One of the things that was really important to me when I decided to go in was to form relationships of trust. Because I know exactly what you mean, because sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of a divide between administration and teachers, and they are sometimes looked at as the enemy. Oh, if those teachers would just do what I tell them, or if our admin would listen. I felt that something that was really important is to develop relationships of trust where our teachers trusted us to not only do our job, but to be able to support them to the best of our ability. And we trusted the teachers that they were doing the very best they could. So that's one of the guiding principles that I came in hoping to develop in myself and also working really hard to develop those relationships with teachers.
I really like what you said, Emily, about building those relationships of trust. I totally agree with you. I think that's foundational. I think when you're a classroom teacher, you know how important that is. When you're working with students, when you're in administration or in a coaching role, it's the exact same thing. Those relationships of trust are going to be absolutely foundational to any type of growth we want to see. But along those same lines, I think building a community is just as important as building relationships of trust. So you're not just building relationships of trust between you and the teacher, but you're also trying to build a community as a school as a whole. I had an admin come in once, first year as an administrator, came into the school and chose to not listen to any of the teachers. This was when I was a classroom teacher, and we quickly saw how it impacted the culture of our school and how it impacted the community. Luckily, the school I was at had this amazing community of teachers. We were able to bond together, even though we had this administrator that we were not seeing eye to eye with. We were able to maintain a really positive workplace environment because the teachers bounded together to create that culture of community. So for me, when I moved into a coaching role, I was really happy to try to bring that same idea of like community and culture are vital to these relationships of trust. So not only am I trying to build relationships with individual teachers, I'm trying to help teachers build relationships with each other, trying to build that community. So as a coach, I don't need every teacher to come to me. I want them to be able to go to each other and learn from each other and their expertise, and not just have to rely on an instructional coach or an administrator for that leadership position or that leadership insight. Because all educators are leaders and they all have incredible good qualities and skills that we can learn from each other. So when we build that community of trust, that was something I wanted to bring into this leadership role. I wanted to make sure that whatever school I'm at, we have a strong community where we can learn from each other.
I love that from both of you. Sean, I'd like to back up a little bit. Emily told us a little bit about her transition from the classroom to learning coach to administration. It was because somebody else recognized something in her. What was yours like, Sean? How did that go from the classroom to becoming an instructional coach?
Yeah. Emily also mentioned how she saw that an instructional leader, like an administrator or a principal, can make a huge impact on one school, right? Your influence is more than just a classroom now. It's become a school. For me, my pathway to this type of a leadership position really came from the people around me that I saw as examples. There's an incredible principal that I know personally within the Granite School District who is kind of this ideal exemplar of what an educator should be for me. I just saw how her impact really started within the classroom, and then it grew as she became an instructional leader and a teacher leader, and other teachers saw it. Now that she's a principal, I can see how that has impacted an entire school and an entire community. And I thought to myself, that's the kind of impact I want to make as an educator. That's the type of community I want to build. So it really is kind of pushing me to pursue higher education, going and getting a doctorate degree and moving into more leadership roles like instructional coaching. And who knows where the future will take me, but it was one of those ideas where I saw how important one person can be to a community, and I wanted to be able to contribute just as much to a community that I care and love about as well.
Sean, I know that you're going to do that. I know Sean from outside of the fellows. I know him from the U, and I can tell you that he is absolutely everything he seems to be. He is going to be a fantastic administrator. He's going to be a fantastic school leader.
And man, he's going to administrate and magistrate. Emily, I wanted to go back. So, Sean, I was just sort of taking some notes, and these two words are coming up, right? Trust and community. And Sean gave some sort of specific examples of what building community looks like at a school. I wonder if you could give some examples, sort of think about our audience that's listening, maybe from a teacher perspective, maybe from an administrator, magistrator, administrator perspective. How do you think about, in a concrete way, building trust, those relationships of trust that are foundational to your sort of philosophy?
I don't know if what I'm going to say is going to be super exciting to everyone, because a lot of my plans are usually I start pretty small. So when I came to Midvale, I just started small. And any opportunity I had to talk with teachers or parents and students, I tried to take advantage of that. I have a general curiosity about people, just really genuine. I always ask a lot of questions when I'm talking with them. I like it to be almost like an 80-20 percentage. They're doing 80% of the talking while I'm listening, and I'm contributing percent because that helps me to get to know who they are at their core. I feel it's really important. You can't serve people that you don't know. Building relationships of trust, part of it is getting to know who you're serving as an administrator. You have to know who they are because that tells you how you can serve them best. So I feel that's very important. And here at Midvale, I'm so blessed to be here because our community, we have so many resources where we pull from and that help our families to be involved. It's that one-on-one communication that helps people know that you genuinely care about them. And sometimes I'll do follow-ups, like if we have a teacher that's having a difficult time, this happened today, I just drop something off on her desk. So put some chocolate on her desk and a little note, just letting her know that I cared about her.
I don't know if you guys listened to the last podcast episode, but it was about building belonging in the classroom. And actually, a lot of what you're saying, and I know this is a point that you both touched on, it's the same, right? Teaching is human work. So whether our students are 5 years old, 18 years old, or 49 years old, these are all such human qualities, the idea of curiosity, of having one-on-one conversations, of following up. I'm just thinking so much about how this resonated with Elena and Brenda that we had on last month, talking about that on the micro scale in their classroom. And you're here talking about it, obviously with adults and on a bigger scale. I'm just constantly reminded how much teaching is about humanity and not about content.
I was just going to say something that Emily said at the beginning where she said that things aren't going to be super exciting. I've got two connections to that. When I was coaching athletic teams, some of the athletes would want to do these amazing things. If you're coaching basketball, you want to do like the most impressive dunk. But the best teams were the teams that were really awesome at the fundamentals, the most basic skills like dribbling, passing, and shooting. Emily, I think that is something that's exciting. Is there's so many memes on the internet that when teachers are told, like when they're having challenges, that did they work on building relationships? It's like, no, but that really is it. Having concrete examples of how to build relationships. And same thing with you, Sean, about the examples that you gave about how to build community. Like these little things go a long way. That's the second connection I was going to make. And it's going to be that we could do like a nerd alert, but it reminded me of a quote from Lord of the Rings where Gandalf is talking and he's saying like Saruman believes that it's only great power that can hold evil in check, but that's not what I've found. I found it's the small things, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keeps the darkness at bay, simple acts of kindness and love. I think that's true in education, that it's not this great overhaul of education that's going to lead to success. It's going to be these small and simple things that lead to excellent outcomes. And that kind of leads me into my next question. I'm trying to follow Emily's advice of the 80-20 split, and it's really hard for me because I want to be on the 80 side most of the time. If we were to imagine the perfect relationship between a teacher, administrators, and maybe the role that the coach plays in that, what would that look like? What would teachers be doing? What would administrators be doing? Give us like a picture of what success would be on that.
Yeah, I like this question because I think in a perfect world, we would have this excellent, like, smooth school where there are no issues ever and everyone can receive feedback in a positive way and no one's ever offended, right? That'd be amazing. I think the best way to accomplish this goal is to have a really clear and unified mission and vision statement, right? When an administrator has a clear picture of where they want their students to go and how we want our students to succeed, when teachers understand that mission and vision statement and are also on board with that, then coaches can kind of step in and help implement that plan. They can help carry that vision and mission out. I think it's really important that everyone is on the same page at a school, so that way any type of initiative that gets rolled out, any type of learning plan or professional development that is used, everyone knows where it's coming from and what the purpose is behind it and how it's going to help our students. We know that every education job, the heart of it is going to be students and their learning. If we can have a clear picture of where our school is going and how to accomplish that goal, it will help teachers, coaches, administrators all be able to work together to build that success for students. I think it is really important for teachers and administrators to have open communication as well. From an administrative standpoint, I think clear is kind. Sometimes administrators have to have those crucial conversations, and sometimes the teachers do a great job of listening and receiving that feedback. There's a really great book I'm reading right now called Tell Me So I Can Hear, and it's all about different ways that we as people and humans receive feedback and give feedback. It talks about how different types of people like to receive feedback in different ways and how we navigate that as givers of feedback. And we look at those same types of lenses of how we give feedback and decide, ooh, this is how I go. I need to make some adjustments to meet the needs of this teacher or this aide or interventionist that I'm working with. It's really great, but I think that the more communication we have and the more feedback that is given, it helps us to keep a clear, unified picture of our mission and vision of how we are going to help all students succeed at our school.
So I am feeling really good about myself right now because what Sean was saying, I was writing it down as he was saying it. I am not kidding. We can see it right here. The first thing that I would always say is any leader of a school needs to have a clear vision of what needs to occur at that school. I think the most important thing to do for a leader is you got to go back to that data, look at the data, because it's all about the student outcomes. Where are they now? Where do we need to get them to be? Because that's why we're all there. I believe that education is a profession of hope. And school administrators need to have that hope along with that vision. The great thing about it is that we're working with other professionals that also believe in hope. As we work together, the school leader can present a vision. We discuss it. We talk about it. We learn from each other on it. Then, as Sean said, we all get on the same page because we're presenting a lot of clear communication. Everything is laid out. There's nothing hidden. And then we can all get on to the work at hand that needs to be done. Teachers need a vision. They need to understand where they need to go. They need that instructional coach to step in and say, okay, this was our goal. You are so close. And I'm so happy that you're doing so well. What do we need to do next?
Something else I wanted to add that I forgot about that Emily helped me remember is I think in a perfect situation, from a teacher side, teachers would all feel comfortable and willing to come talk to administration or coaches about concerns they're having in the classroom or about things that they would like to improve on. Kind of going back to that communication, it should be going both ways, and both people or both parties should feel comfortable sharing information both ways. Teachers should be able to raise their concerns in a safe environment, as well as teacher or coaches and administration being able to kind of give some critical feedback when needed or if needed, because we know that all teachers never need critical feedback because they're perfect.
That's true. And I love what both of you had to say right there. A couple of things that stood out to me from that is we're talking about clarity of mission and vision. And Lauren pointed out that last month we had our guests on the podcast. They were talking about creating a sense of belonging in the classroom. Now it seems like we're talking about that on a larger scale. It's everything that you just said is like what we want teachers to do in classrooms. Now we're expanding that out, right? We want to have clear expectations, success criteria. We want to assess where students are, where we want them to be, and the tools that are going to get them there. How can we build capacity of teachers to involve them in leadership roles or leadership experiences in schools?
I love this question because, as you said, I had opportunities where I had supervisors that gave me other responsibilities. And I think the most important thing for school leaders in giving shared leadership is you got to know who you're working with. You got to know who wants those opportunities, who might be a little bit shy and just needs a little bit of a loving nudge, who has skills in different areas that you can utilize. Because we always feel so good when somebody comes up to us and says, hey, I noticed this about you, and we have this need. Do you think you could help us out a little bit? That feels amazing. First, because they know who you are, they've noticed things about you. And second, because you're going to be able to fulfill a need. Even if you're not able to accept that responsibility at that time, and that really helps to fill all of our buckets. That's one of the things that I try to do is I get to know people. I try to understand where their strengths are, what their talents are, what their gifts are. If we have things that come up I can say, hey, do you know this teacher is actually really good at that? Maybe we could consider asking her.
I absolutely agree with you that knowing the teachers in this school are going to be pivotal in implementing some sort of distributive leadership model. You kind of have to know if your school is at a place where it's ready for that type of leadership and which teachers are willing and wanting that type of leadership experiences and which teachers are more comfortable having leadership opportunities within their own classrooms rather than at a school level. Knowing your teacher, knowing your schools, knowing the people you work with are really going to help you kind of develop that distributive model that could be super beneficial for a school. I remember one of the first teacher leadership jobs I was given as a teacher was to organize and run the school science night. I loved teaching science. I loved how excited the kids got. And I was really excited for this opportunity. But I quickly found out that is one really big job for just myself. The first year I did it all alone, and it nearly took it out of me. I was really burnt out by the end of the night. It was a blast, a huge success, a ton of fun. I quickly learned that the following year, when I did it again, I needed to rely on other people. The only way we were able to watch that science night grow was by using some sort of distributive leadership, by saying, hey, I can't do this alone. You've got these really great skill sets that can help us. Can you help organize the community members? And PTA, can you help organize the parent volunteers? I can help organize the teachers and things like that. It allowed it to grow and become more than just a fun science activity and become a vital part of the community, something that is bringing people together and helping the school grow together, not just have fun, if that makes sense.
Yes, perfect. Thank you both for those responses. Those are incredible. Some things that I feel like teachers can immediately implement. We're getting ready. We're getting short on time. It's amazing how fast our time goes. But Lauren and I are going to transition to some of our final thoughts. But real quick before we do, Emily and Sean, do you have any final thought that you want to leave?
I think administration and teachers sometimes have this mentality that they are antithesis. They're against each other, when in reality, we are the same team. I believe that all students in a school are our students. They don't belong to a teacher. They don't belong to a classroom. We all have a responsibility to help all of the students at our schools grow and be successful. My biggest takeaway would be that when administration and teachers and coaches work together as a team to accomplish a common vision or a common mission, that's when we're really going to see the needle move. That's when we're going to really see our students grow, not only academically, but socially and emotionally. We're going to see our students really bond together as a community and grow in a way that we hope that our students are growing.
I agree absolutely with what Sean said. I don't think there's any one person in a school who has an easy job. All of us have difficult work, but it's different work. We all absolutely need each other to be able to accomplish those goals. And the goal is always goes back to the students. How can we help them and provide not only a great education, but as Sean said, help them to grow emotionally and mature in the way that we want them to. And that can only be done if we're working all together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean and Emily, for joining us today. Lauren, we ate into a little bit of our reflection time because we wanted to just hear more from Emily and Sean. But as you listened to Emily and Sean today, what was some of your top takeaways?
I wrote down a lot of things, but I'm just going to share one. I was thinking a lot about how leaders, not just in schools, are so often just the people who say yes before they're ready, right? That maybe someone recognized something in you, like Emily was saying, offers you an opportunity and you say yes, not because you necessarily sought it out or think that you are uniquely equipped to do it, but that you have this attitude of yes. And I was just listening to a podcast this morning. It was an interview with a historian, and I learned that George Washington, when he was going to be the commander, the general in the Revolutionary War before he became president, he actually went to a bookstore and bought a book about how to be a general. He didn't know how to be a general. What an amazing reminder. Leaders come from people who say yes and often say yes before they are ready. And that can be inspiring to teachers as well, who don't see themselves as leaders or don't necessarily aspire to that, but that being a leader is about being there and often assenting. Even if you feel like you need to go buy a book about how to be a leader, And so I just think a lot about teachers often see themselves as being confined to their classroom. They say, like what Emily said, I love the classroom. I want to stay in there. That's my world. We're richer for teachers saying yes and buying books on how to be a general. That just kept ringing in my ears as I listened to both of these amazing leaders.
That reminds me of the zone of proximal development, right? We're talking about Vygotsky. It's like, where are we? I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more than that. That's where we build some capacity right there. My takeaway was very similar to yours, Lauren, because if anybody's listened to this podcast for a long time, our first year was all about teacher stories. We noticed this common thread that kept popping up was that there was somebody who recognized something in people who decided to become teachers and gave them the feeling of empowerment and courage to do it. That's what I heard from both Sean and Emily today, is whether it was them being recognized or saying that we need to recognize who we work with. It's that concept that the belief that we have in ourselves and the belief can be grown by the belief that others have in us as well. And it'll get us to do exactly what you just said, Lauren, is to say yes, even if we're not 100% ready for it. All right, that's it for the podcast. Thank you again to Sean and Emily for joining us, and to our audience for listening. Please continue to listen and spread the word to others as well. Share this podcast out on your social media feeds. You can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music, or any other podcast platform. Check us out on Instagram for breakout videos as well. I believe YouTube now. We are also posting our episodes. This podcast was produced by the one, the only, the excellent podcast producer, Kayla Towner. For my co-host, Lauren Merkley, this is Ryan Rarick signing off. Thanks for listening, everybody.